And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Fifth segment, Brothers of the Serpent podcast, Christmas episode, UFOs with Marty. What are we going to call this one?
Deconstructing Demons.
That's a great title. Put it in the book. Deconstructing
On Christmas?
I'm deconstructing them, though, not constructing them.
Yeah, I noticed you haven't made me summon anything in this.
I was thinking it was deconstructing.
It is.
Deconstructing
It's a
demons.
play on words.
Yeah. It is. Yeah, that's what the title was, deconstructing. Yeah. Okay. So we're on part 20 of Marty's document here. If my conjecture that there has been an unrecognized force meddling with humanity from behind the veil of our perceived reality for millennia is completely delusional, at least I'm in good company. Yep. There you go. Quote, "The greatest of mysteries. Why don't they ever come here or send here openly? Of course, there's nothing to that mystery if we don't take so seriously the notion that we must be interesting. It's probably for moral reasons that they stay away, but even so, there must be some degraded ones among them. The answer that occurs to me is so simple that it seems immediately acceptable, if we accept that the obvious is the solution of all problems, or if most of our perplexities consist in laboriously and painfully conceiving of the unanswerable, and then looking for answers using such words as obvious and solution conventionally. I think we're property. I should say we belong to something," unquote. That is from The Book of the Damned by Charles Fort, written in 1919. An impressive parallel can be made between UFO occupants and the popular conception of demons. That's from Messengers of Deception by Jacques Vallée, written in 2008, a book that I recommend everyone who's interested in this topic should read. That's from me, Russ, not Marty. All of you should read Messengers of Deception if you haven't already. Throughout most of history, the manifestations of demonology, the study of demons, and demonopathy, demonic possession, have been viewed from a religious perspective and explained as the work of the devil. The bizarre manipulations and ill effects described in the demonological literature are usually regarded as the result of a great unseen conflict between God and the devil. In UFO lore, the same conflict has been observed. The quasi-angels of biblical times have become magnificent spacemen. A major but little explored aspect of the UFO phenomenon is therefore theological and philosophical rather than purely scientific. That's from Operation Trojan Horse by John Keel. Oh yeah, another great author in this topic. Clues from any early religious beliefs, mythology, and folklore indicate that flying saucers were seen as vehicles of a divine race, and that they were associated with many of the sites where they are said to appear today. That's from The Flying Saucer Vision by John Mitchell in 1967. What we are witnessing is a reenactment of some very ancient myths and legends common to many of the world's religious traditions. The most obvious is the ongoing battle for the souls of mankind between the opposing forces of light and dark and good and evil, God and the devil, played out in a technological setting where spaceships replace traditional religious imagery. That's from Flying Saucers from Hell by Dr. David Clark, written in 2006. As I probed deeper, however, I was compelled to face the possibility that some human problems may be rooted in some of the most utterly bizarre realities imaginable. Because such realities are rarely acknowledged, let alone understood, they are not dealt with. As a result, the problems those realities generate are rarely resolved, and so the world seems to stumble from one calamity to the next. That would be from Gods of Eden by William Bramley, written in 1993. These visitors from outer space in many instances claim to be angels sent to prepare the way for the coming of Christ. They warn us of great disasters which are before us on the horizon. Their message is in many ways identical to the biblical prophecies presented in the book of Revelation. Yet they fall far short of the truth of the Bible and falsify the statements concerning Christ. Why? Deliberate deception is the only possible answer to that most important question. These so-called extraterrestrial visitors are simply parroting the message of Satan in order to deceive the inhabitants of this world and prepare for the coming of the Antichrist. That's from Sons of God Return by Kelly L. Seagraves, written in 1975. Was that due to Christian? Sounds like it.
Yeah, probably so. This is probably the most striking one right here.
Okay.
This last one.
We propose that the reality behind the UFO phenomenon is due to a manifestation of non-human preternatural consciousness for the purpose of deception that can interact with our physical environment and with our human consciousness to produce visual, physical, and psychological effects. The artificial construct created by this consciousness mimics our three-dimensional objects and systems and even our religious imagery. The purpose being to slowly condition our minds through subtle deception to accept a false belief while undermining our irrational thought processes and our human spirit. From Unmasking the Enemy by Dr. Nelson Pacheco. Is that right?
Yes.
Pacheco?
Mm-hmm.
A former principal scientist with the Supreme Headquarters, Allied Powers in Europe Technical Center, and Tommy Bland, now retired U.S. Air Force employee. That's an interesting take on it.
Yeah. I think that's probably
Slowly
the most
condition
accurate.
our minds for what? To accept a false belief while undermining our rational thought processes. What false belief? I guess there would be context in the book. Okay, so let's go back to where this story started. The Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees both describe how the sons of Noah were deceived by the demons. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray and became corrupt in all their ways. From the Book of Enoch. And in the third week of this Jubilee, the unclean demons began to lead astray the children of the sons of Noah, and to err, and destroy them. The Book of Jubilees. The deception is well established. However, there seems to be some confusion about who is actually responsible. The Book of Jubilees states, "And they, the watchers, begat sons, the Nephilim, and they were all unlike, and they devoured one another. And the giants slew the Nephilim, and the Nephil slew the Elio, or Eljo, and the Eljo mankind, and one man another." So from this passage, one could conclude that the giants, the Nephilim, and the Eljo are three distinct forms of progeny resulting from the relations between the watchers and the daughters of men. This seems to be confirmed in the Greek translation of 1 Enoch, which adds, "And they, the women, bore to them, the watchers, three races. First, the great giants. The giants brought forth the Nephilim, and the Nephilim brought forth the Eliud, or Eliud, and they existed, increasing in power according to their greatness." The Book of Giants, another significant non-canonical text, refers to the giants as Gibborim. Is that right? Gibborim.
Gibberum.
Gibborim, which translates to mighty men, an arrogant race of warriors obsessed with...
It's Gibberum, actually.
Gibberum.
Yeah.
Okay, which translates to mighty men, an arrogant race of warriors obsessed with their hunting prowess and human bloodshed. The Nephilim, which literally translates to fallen ones, were the children of the Gibborim. It also refers to the Eliud or Eljo, which translates to glorious ones, as the children of the Nephilim, which here again seems to confirm a distinction between the three races. In 1 Enoch and Jubilees, the tyrannical giants are described as being part gods and part man. Regular listeners will remember that in the ancient epic, Gilgamesh was also described as a giant who was said to be 2/3 god and 1/3 man. And regarding Gilgamesh's behavior, Andrew George, a translator of the epic, states, "The nature of Gilgamesh's tyranny is not explained by the author, as it appears not necessary to know more than that he is a tyrant." Well, I think there's part of the tyranny was like he was just an asshole at the beginning.
Yeah,
when he
but
was
this
young.
explains why.
Yeah, okay. This is surely not a coincidence, and such suspicions are confirmed in the Book of Giants, in which Gilgamesh not only appears, but is quoted as stating, "I am a gibber, and by the mighty strength of my arm and my own great strength I went up against all flesh, and I made war against them, but I did not prevail. And I am not able to stand firm against them, for my opponents are angels who reside in heaven, and they dwell in the holy places. And they were not defeated, for they are stronger than I." Interestingly, in this context, Gilgamesh is portrayed as a demon who tormented man, but was defeated by the angels. This seems to make sense since, as discussed previously, his father Lilu was described in the epic as exhibiting the characteristics of an incubus. While conducting my research, I also discovered that the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees were removed from the Jewish and Christian canons in the 4th century AD because religious scholars determined that it would not have been possible for angels to have had intercourse with human women. But on what pretense? And now the giants, who are produced from the spirits and flesh, shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on the earth shall be their dwelling. This passage from the Book of Enoch again refers to the giants as having been produced from the spirits, i.e. the watchers or angels, and flesh, i.e. human women. So how could non-physical spirits have the ability to interact physically with flesh and produce such giants? Well, perhaps Enoch provides an answer in this passage. And Uriel said to me, "Here shall stand the angels who have connected themselves with women, and their spirits, assuming many different forms, are defiling mankind and shall lead them astray into sacrificing to demons as gods." It would appear that Enoch is suggesting that the non-physical spirits of the Watchers had the ability or technology to assume physical form. Furthermore, that they used those abilities to corrupt and deceive mankind into deifying their children. So allow me to explain. Enoch continues by describing events that occurred following the deluge, which was sent specifically to destroy the progeny of the Watchers. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies, because they are born from men, and from the holy Watchers is their beginning and primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits shall they be called. And the spirits of the giants afflict, oppress, destroy, attack, do battle, and work destruction on the earth and cause trouble. This passage suggests that at least some of the abilities of the non-physical Watchers were passed down to the giants, allowing them to endure in spirit form after their physical bodies were destroyed. And it is further suggested that they continued their oppressive onslaught on mankind. Yeah, so I've encountered this idea too, that whatever this destruction, like if the flood was supposed to kill the giants, the Nephilim or whatever, that it does, but their spirit forms remain, and those become the demons and shit that people are interacting with. And they're still mad that they were killed in the flood, but they're still around as well. Because they've been banished here or something.
It could also be a metaphor.
Yeah.
And the spirit of their spirit, if you consider that their spirit was this warlike, bloodthirsty, race, that their spirit dwells within us, who are now considered,
yeah,
bloodthirsty, right?
I can see that, yeah. But it's just saying they shall be evil spirits on earth.
Yeah. Well, notice this next line.
It is especially noteworthy that in these passages, the Watchers are referred to as angels and holy, and the pejoratives demon and evil are only used in association with the spirits of their hybrid progeny. In summation, the Gibberim, aka giants, were a hybrid race of arrogantly bloodthirsty antagonists who waged war against the holy. All right, you have holy in here.
Yes, whole, as in
As
righteous.
in whole, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
First holy as in righteous, and then holy as in all of. Angels, and were defeated, but whose spirit endures, causing deception, oppression, and destruction of mankind. Perhaps this is why the Book of Jubilees is also known as the Book of Division. But if the Watchers had the ability to alter their form, surely so should those further up the chain of being. In 1910, 47 parchment codices were discovered in an unknown monastery abandoned in the 10th century AD in the village of Hamuli, in the western part of the Fayum in Egypt. Written in Sahidic and Fayumic, the codices include portion M610, written by Cyril of Jerusalem between 1861 and 1894. Due to the poor condition of the parchments, the text remained unpublished or translated until Roloff van den Broek of Utrecht University in the Netherlands undertook the challenge in 2010 through 2012. Why didn't you just say somebody translated it? Published in the book Pseudo Cyril of Jerusalem on the Life and Passion of Christ, the book contains The discovery of ancient writings of the apostles, a list of the apostles with their worldly professions, a
Pilate Apocryphon.
Pilate Apocryphon, an unfamiliar chronology of Holy Week, stories about Jesus' divine body and his physical appearance, the dreams of Pilate and Procla, and the story of Pilate and Jesus. The codices describe first-hand accounts surrounding the betrayal of Jesus and more specifically the circumstances regarding Judas's kiss. Astonishingly, these texts detail the need for Judas to do so in order to identify him to his captors due to Jesus' ability to shapeshift. In the Contra Celsum, I don't know, 264, Origen of Alexandria states, "To those who saw Jesus, he did not appear alike to all. His appearance was not just the same to those who saw him, but varied according to their individual capacity." Origen explained that Jesus appeared in different forms to different people simultaneously, depending on the spiritual capacity of the individual. This belief was also stated in Acts by Peter, which states, "Each of us saw him as he was capable to see him, as far as he could." Acts also includes accounts of healings performed by a heavenly light. When Peter asked the healed what they have seen, some say an old man, and others a young man, and others a child. In the Gnostic Apocryphon of John, John sees Christ as a child, an old man, and a young man, and states that Jesus appeared to James as a child and a young man, but to John as a beautiful, well-shaped man of cheerful countenance, and as a man with a rather bald head and thick flowing beard, and later as a small man and unattractive, and then again as one reaching to heaven. Such claims are also seemingly supported in Matthew 25:55, which states, "We hold that Jesus was such a wonderful person, not only as to the divinity within him which was hidden from the multitude, but also to his body, which was transfigured when he wished, and before whom he wished." This ability to transfigure is reiterated by Cyril when, on the advice of his wife, Judas accepts a bribe of 30 pieces of silver from Jewish leaders to betray Jesus. It states that Judas agrees to identify Jesus to his captors by the sign of a kiss, for the Jews cannot recognize Jesus because of his ever-changing appearance. I never picked up on this.
This is new. This is pretty new.
Okay.
I think it was published in 2014.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you're reading
Some of
out,
that is in there.
Yeah,
you just
you're
don't,
reading out this, like, part of the Acts here.
Yeah, they're in
but
there.
You just take it as a metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you're saying this might actually not be a metaphor, but that he could totally look like different things.
This next part I'd never heard either.
But by far the most astonishing revelation are the details of the events which transpired when Jesus sat down to have a meal with Pontius Pilate. During this meeting, Pilate advises Jesus to flee, but Jesus replies that he wants to be crucified. Jesus then reveals to him his divine nature by disappearing from Pilate's sight for a long time. Pilate faints and is raised by Jesus, and then he understands that Jesus could save himself if he wished to do so. Pilate is so thoroughly convinced and moved by this experience that he offers to have his own son killed in Jesus' place. Following this meeting, both Pilate and his wife Procla experience apocalyptic dream visions of darkness befalling earth and their own imminent deaths. So that was a lot to contemplate, but I ask you, are there any obvious parallels that may be drawn from any of this? I don't know. What point are you trying to make that he was a shapeshifter?
Didn't we just talk about that a minute ago, about how certain aspects of the phenomenon appear differently to people side by side? They perceive it differently, even though they're both standing together.
Yeah. But one person seeing what looks like a spaceship and another person only seeing a light is not the same as a person who can shapeshift.
I don't know.
I mean, it could be the same, but I'm just saying, like, those could also be very different things. But yeah, are you just implying that Jesus was like he was a 33-year-long manifestation of this stuff that walked around amongst people?
I'm not suggesting that he wasn't a real
No, I'm
being, in other words, but
I'm wondering, like, if that seems to be the implication here, or at least that this version was one of those things. He was a hybrid, right? Jesus was an alien. That's where we're going here.
No. You see, you're still using the labels.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to throw the labels out there. Okay, as I have stated before, we often hear statistics thrown around like 50% of the population believe in UFOs, but what percentage believe in ghosts or psychic phenomena, religiosity, or the spirit realm? What if they are all different perceptions of the same phenomenon? If that were true, the combined belief quotient could represent 95% of the world's population. As presented in UFOs, as presented in UFOs Part 1, by as early as 1949 with the Saturday Evening Post articles by Sidney Shallett, and with the Life magazine cover article, Have We Visitors from Space, by Bob Gina in 1952, the Pentagon has purposefully succeeded stories in the media suggesting that they were withholding evidence of extraterrestrial visitation. Is what we are witnessing play out in the media today, which was sparked by the December 17th, 2017 article in the New York Times by Ralph Blumenthal and Leslie Keene that included leaked video from the Nimitz encounter, not a page out of that same playbook. The real question we should be asking is why? Why vehemently deny one thing while at the same time planting seeds of doubt in that very denial? It's as if they're playing the role of Wizard of Oz, broadcasting to the public, pay no mind to the man behind the curtain. As I have stated from the very beginning of this UFO series, I do not subscribe to the belief that secrecy has stemmed from fear of mass panic concerning the existence of extraterrestrial life. The truth must be something much darker, unfathomable, and broadly unacceptable. As Terence McKenna stated, we are part of a symbiotic relationship with something which disguises itself as an extraterrestrial invasion so as to not alarm us. Right, that's
Great
classic
quote.
McKenna right there, yeah.
Great quote.
The implication being that an extraterrestrial invasion is less scary than what they actually are.
Right. That's what I've been saying since episode 1.
Telling the public that lights in the sky might be drones from another planet is far less disruptive to society and government rule than acknowledging that Jiminy Cricket is real and has been guiding humanity throughout human history. Is it? You think that's less disruptive? Or maybe I don't get your analogy here with Jiminy Cricket.
A voice.
Yeah, Jiminy Cricket is like a good guy.
Right. Yeah, because some of this is good. It's not all bad.
I know, I'm just saying, like, you think that...
But it's guiding.
Yeah.
Whatever this is intervening. I don't know whether you can interpret it, whether it's good or bad, but it's intervention either way.
Yeah. I just don't think Jiminy Cricket is a dark secret. That's what I'm saying I don't get.
I'm using it as an analogy.
Yeah. Again, I will reiterate, although not widely recognized or accepted by mainstream ufology, as we have discussed throughout the UFO series, cases such as those of Juan Perez, Ray Hernandez, Chris Bledsoe, and Skinwalker Ranch all share elements which boldly suggest connections between paranormal, spiritual, and UFO-type encounters. In a recent interview, Dr. Gary Nolan shared his thoughts regarding certain aspects of his research with experiencers of anomalous phenomena and explained, "Our senses are a filter to stop our brain from being overwhelmed with reality." Expanding upon the limits of human perception, he stated, "If you think a little bit about it, schizophrenics hear things and see things no one else sees. So are they all crazy? They can't turn it off." On December 26, 1972, the New York Times published an article citing a prediction by a man named Reuben Greenspan. Greenspan was a mathematician from Greenwich Village who taught at the Siemens Church Institute of New York and predicted that a major earthquake would strike San Francisco on January 4th, 1973. Earthquake predictions for the San Andreas Fault are not a novelty. However, what sets this one apart was Greenspan's track record of accuracy, correctly providing dates for 13 of 16 predictions since 1935. Approximately a month and a half before Greenspan went public with his most recent prediction, 3,000 miles away in the Santa Cruz Mountains in California, Herbert Mullins began hearing discarnate voices that instructed him that he must perform blood sacrifices to prevent a major earthquake which would cost the lives of thousands. This is what I meant when I said there's less blood. Not fighting wars, but like there's usually less blood in praying versus doing occult rituals. The voices informed him that the massive bloodshed of the Vietnam War had temporarily served to satisfy this requirement. However, as the war was winding down, other sacrifices must be substituted to fulfill the quota. That's very Bramley right there.
Oh, yeah.
Beginning on October 12th, 1972, Herbert Mullins murdered 13 innocent strangers in the San Francisco area until on February 13th, 1973, he calmly got out of his car and shot his final victim in broad daylight in front of multiple witnesses. When the police finally caught up with Mullins, despite having a rifle by his side, he did not put up any resistance. During his trial, it was determined that Mullins suffered from schizophrenia. However, he never recanted his belief that his actions were righteous, reinforced in his mind by the fact that Greenspan's earthquake prediction was not fulfilled. Right. What's that post hoc ergo propter hoc, whatever, however it goes. Right. In other words, this is the whole like, because I did these murders, the earthquake that was predicted didn't take place.
Right.
Right. So there's two ways to look at that. Like, either he's correct or he isn't, and you can't actually prove either one.
Exactly.
He broke the law.
Yeah.
It gets worse.
Throw him in jail.
Vincent Lee was born in Dandong in China in 1968 and attended the Wuhan Institute of Technology, graduating in 1992 with a bachelor's degree in computer software engineering. In 2001, he immigrated to Canada, where he later married. Living in Edmonton, Lee was described as reliable and hardworking, never showing any signs of trouble. Then in July 2008, he asked for time off from work to travel to Winnipeg for a job interview. On July 30th, Lee boarded a Greyhound bus headed for Winnipeg. Seated next to him on the drive was a stranger named Tim McLean. McLean, who barely acknowledged him. Approximately 1,200 kilometers into their 1,300-kilometer trip, McLean was sleeping, leaning against the window with headphones on, when Lee suddenly produced a knife and began stabbing him in the neck and chest. As the other passengers began screaming, the bus driver quickly pulled over on the side of the road, allowing them to escape. However, Lee remained on board, proceeding to decapitate and dismember his victim, displaying the severed head in the window to horrified onlookers. Witnesses recount that Lee appeared oblivious to others, and they were struck by his calm demeanor, stating, "There was no rage or anything. He was like a robot, stabbing the guy." Lee was ultimately captured by the police and placed on trial. During the proceedings, it was determined that he was suffering from schizophrenia and was found not criminally responsible under Section 16 of the Canadian Criminal Code, and was remanded to the Selkirk Mental Health Center for treatment. Under Section 16, no person is criminally responsible for an act committed while suffering from a mental disorder that rendered the person incapable of appreciating the nature and quality of the act or of knowing that it was wrong. Lee received treatment and was released back into society in February of 2017. So what triggered this seemingly well-educated and well-adjusted middle-aged man to suddenly commit such a heinous act? According to Lee, he heard the voice of God tell him that he was the third story of the Bible, right? Is that what it says? He was the third story of the Bible, and he must destroy the demon sitting beside him in order to save people from an alien attack. Good grief. Now allow me to touch on some curious synchronicities surrounding one of the most notorious cases involving voices from the unknown.
Kyle will like this.
In UFOs Part 6, we took an unexpected tangent as a result of the observation I made regarding the coincidence between the plot of Crowley's book Moonchild, Roman Polanski's movie Rosemary's Baby, and the Manson family's murder of Sharon Tate. I didn't expect how it would resonate, so let me add a bit more to the odd synchronicities. Rosemary's Baby was filmed almost entirely in the Dakota Building in New York City. The Dakota Building is famously the location where John Lennon lived and was ultimately murdered by Mark David Chapman. Chapman, who had no prior convictions, claimed to have shot Lennon because he was told to do so by the voices in his head from a group of powerful and evil little people, and prayed to Satan to give him the strength to do their bidding. Lennon, who claimed to have had UFO sightings from the building, as well as his own communications with a non-human intelligence, had once stated, "The Beatles are more popular than Jesus." Soon after making that claim, in 1967, the Beatles released the album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which opens with the line, "20 years ago today, Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play." 20 years before that, in 1947, the great beast 666, Aleister Crowley, died in a boarding house in the UK, and coincidentally, his picture is on the cover of Sgt. Pepper.
Jesus Christ.
Some might think that connection is a bit of a stretch, so let me read the following quote made by Lennon during an interview with David Sheff for Playboy. "The whole Beatle idea was to do what you want, right? To take your own responsibility, to do what you want and try not to harm other people, right? Do what thou wilt, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody. Do what thou wilt," a quote borrowed directly from Aleister Crowley's Book of the Law. During a prison interview, Chapman was asked about the voices and subsequent exorcism he received. He stated, "This was real, and when these things came out of me, I could feel them. I could feel them when they came out of my mouth. They were different personalities, and they were different sounds and different languages." Yeah, that's a weird tangle right there.
Yeah.
I remember reading.
Who says this stuff is who says the Beatles are about just do what thou wilt?
The
That was a
interviewer.
quote. That was John Lennon. Said
Okay,
that.
John Lennon's saying that.
Oh, is that? Yeah, okay, you're right. Lennon is making that statement while he's talking to David Sheff. It was weird because since it's all phrased like a question, I thought this was a question by the interviewer.
Yeah, no, that's
That's
Lennon
Lennon saying that. Okay. Legends of voices from the unknown are nearly as old as human history itself, but few stories exemplify this more than that of the Greek god Pan. No! Regular Ritz listeners will remember him from my invocation. What is this bullshit? Russ's invocation. In episode 213, which was immediately followed by a spontaneous thunderstorm that caused a delay in the recording of episode 214. Reconstructed from the Proto-Indo-European god Penussan, who represented nature, Pan derived his name from the Greek word companion.
Penison. He'd get laughed out of here.
Likewise, Pan was said to be a forest-dwelling trickster who lured men off the trail, never to be seen again. It is for this reason that he is often referred to as the god heard but not seen, and that the word panic owes its derivation to Pan. The similarities between his horned goat-like appearance and that of the classic depictions of the devil have served to create a long-standing association between them, most notably one by Aleister Crowley, who penned the hymn to Pan, ritualistically recited by Jack Parsons before rocket tests and recklessly delivered by Russ on the show. Why are you putting this on me? This is bullshit. Jesus Christ. In this regard, the Greek historian Plutarch recounts an interesting story involving a discarnate voice from the unknown. First-hand witness. Great.
Epithes. Whatever. This dude, just say a guy. It's not important.
Epitherses, I don't know, was a teacher from Chaeronea, a small village in Greece. Sometime between 14 and 37 AD, he was traveling along with several other passengers on a freight ship sailing to Italy. One evening, while standing near the island of Paxi, the other passengers were relaxing on the deck, enjoying the stillness of the windless night, when a loud, unidentified voice called out from the forest, Famous! Startled, the passengers and crew didn't know what to make of it. That is, until one of the passengers approached the edge of the ship. Unknown to anyone on the ship, the Egyptian passenger's name was Thamus. Again, the unidentified voice called out, Thamus! Unsure what to do, Thamus responded by asking who calls. More forcefully this time, the voice stated, When you come opposite to Palodes, announce that the great Pan is dead. I've heard that too. The great god Pan is dead. The ship's crew was visibly shaken and unsure what to do. And needless to say, this was doubly true for Thamus, the captain and crew debated whether to continue on their course to Italy or abide by the instructions given by the voice and set sails for Palodes. Reluctant to tempt fate, it was decided to allow the ship to continue drifting and either continue en route to Italy if the wind so directed or deliver the message if they drifted in the vicinity of Palodes. But the wind didn't blow, so they drifted. And when they neared the coast, Themis reluctantly approached the stern of the ship and repeated the announcement, "Great Pan is dead!" And suddenly great, sorrowful cries rang out from the island, for never before had a god died. Plutarch recorded the extraordinary event, noting its many witnesses. His report made its way to the Roman Emperor Tiberius Caesar, who summoned Themis to his palace to hear the story from him directly. After this, Tiberius became fascinated by Pan and ordered a complete investigation. I demand an investigation of this god's death. So is Pan truly dead, or was this, as Crowley stated, just another one of his tricksome gambles? In the book The Secret History of the World, author Mark Booth states, "It might be argued that, because they lived in times when even the best educated did not enjoy all the intellectual benefits that modern science brings, it is only natural that Charlemagne, Dante, Joan of Arc, Shakespeare, Cervantes, Leonardo, Michelangelo, Milton, Bach, Mozart, Goethe, Beethoven, and Napoleon all held beliefs that are discredited today. But then isn't it rather surprising that that many in modern times have held the same sets of beliefs, not just madmen, lone mystics, or writers of fantasies, but the founders of the modern scientific method, the humanists, the rationalists, the liberators, secularizers, and scourges of superstition, the modernists, the skeptics, and the mockers? Could the very people who have done most to form today's scientifically oriented and materialistic worldview secretly have believed something else? Newton, Kepler, Voltaire, Paine, Washington, Franklin, Tolstoy, who's that guy?
Dostoevsky?
Dostoevsky? I don't know. Edison, Wilde, Gandhi, Duchamp. Could it be true that they were initiated into a secret tradition, taught to believe in the power of mind over matter, and that they were able to communicate with incorporeal spirits? So in addition to those advancements discussed previously, what other information has been seemingly derived from this incorporeal realm? In 1890, August... it's all these names, man.
Keklu.
August Kekule,
Yep.
who discovered the atomic structure of benzene, revealed at a science symposium in Germany that the idea presented itself to him in a dream in which he imagined a snake eating its own tail, like the ancient symbol of the Ouroboros. In 1920, Frederick G. Banting, an unknown Canadian surgeon at the time, claimed that in a dream he was told to surgically ligate the pancreas of a diabetic dog to stop the flow of nourishment. The discovery that diabetes could be treated with insulin injections won him the Nobel Prize in Medicine. In 1923, here we go again, Otto Loewy, a German pharmacologist who discovered...
Acetylcholine. A neurotransmitter.
Yeah, a neurotransmitter involved in dreaming, ironically woke up in the middle of a dream, jotted down a few notes on paper, and went back to sleep. Loewy's dream led to the discovery that nerve cell communication is chemical rather than electrical, and for this he won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1936. In May of 1941, Deputy Fuhrer Rudolf Hess flew to Scotland to attempt to make a deal with the British as the result of what he claimed was information given to him in a dream by supernatural forces. The information obtained from his interrogation remains classified until 2041. What? So 100 years later, they just give it a century of classification there. But recognition of this seemingly unexplainable phenomenon is not a recent development. In 1595, author Nicholas Remy published the book Demonolatry, in which he makes the following astute observations. Plutarch relates that Socrates had two familiar spirits with whom he used to converse on terms of the great friendship, but it was no voice from without, says Proclus, that he heard, but a breath from within which reached the organs of his senses. Yet Socrates believed that he could hear the voice sounding loud in his ears, whereas no one else, however observant and keen of hearing, could distinguish the least sound even when he placed his ear right against him. If this holds good of the deception of the hearing, it cannot be less valid in respect of the illusion of the eyes, which all of the senses are the most easily cheated. For that matter, all of our senses are feeble and are open to delusions and glamours. 400 years after Remy's observation regarding human sensory perception, finally, just this month, we learn of a scientific breakthrough that may lead to a better understanding of the phenomenon. I gotta take a break there.
This is the part the watcher's gonna.
I thought you said there were 25 parts.
Yeah,
Why
I
am
guess
I
I
at
miscounted.
27?
This is the last one, but probably the most important.
Okay. And what are you going for here? Like, I just read a whole bunch of stuff, and nowhere in here are you saying, like, here's what we're looking at. What are we going for?
This will explain it.
Okay.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
Okay. Where was I going here?
27.
Yeah. Dr. Gary Nolan does not equivocate in his official statements regarding the quantifiable psychological effects he has studied resulting from UFO encounters. However, his personal remarks are absolute and made from a position of certainty regarding the reality of the intelligence behind the phenomenon. As stated earlier, Dr. Nolan was approached by agents of the U.S. government to conduct groundbreaking research related to encounters by enlisted personnel with UFOs. In a recent interview with Vice, he is quoted on the record stating, "They started showing the MRIs of some of these pilots and ground personnel and intelligence agents who had been damaged. The MRIs were clear. You didn't even have to be an MD to see that there was a problem. Some of their brains were horribly, horribly damaged. And so that's what kind of got me involved." As his work began, the first extensive psychological evaluations were performed to ensure that the individuals involved were not delusional. Next, diving headlong into the abnormalities they exhibited, he began to notice similarities across many of the individuals affected. It was eventually recognized that the area of the brain seemingly being affected, the motor control center, could not have been damaged without killing these individuals. Researchers then realized that what they were seeing was not damage to the brain. It was an overconnection of neurons in the area of the brain responsible for planning, learning, and execution. This aberration ranged from 5 to 15 times that of normal brains. Comparing the neural density visible in the MRIs to scans of some of the individuals taken before their encounters revealed that this condition was already present. Furthermore, it was found that this condition was also present in their family members. Effectively, these people were born with a condition that may afford them extraordinary perceptive abilities. More shockingly, Dr. Nolan states that the 100 or so experiencers studied had a smorgasbord of other symptoms. Smorgasbord. There we go. And about a quarter of them died from their injuries. Dr. Nolan is very cautious not to interject any hypothesis into his official findings. However, he does concede, "I have my private thoughts about what I think is going on, and some of them I'm very, very sure about." Given his claims of personal encounters with non-human intelligence, it is not hard to deduce where his thoughts might lie. He concludes, "When your mind expands to a certain point in terms of what you might consider reality, other entities live there." In summation, though his exhaustive academic research as a member of the Invisible College, through his exhaustive academic research as a member of the Invisible College, Dr. Gary Nolan has scientifically validated what many of us have long suspected. For the first time in human history, he has revealed the existence of scientific data which conclusively proves that skeptics who can neither perceive nor conceive of the existence of non-human intelligences are, in fact, clinically mentally handicapped. I can imagine. This is 28.
This is it. This is the finish.
He told me 25, folks.
Yeah.
I'm already on part 28. I can imagine that many listeners' heads are spinning right now, just as mine was while attempting to assemble all this into an understandable form. And I recognize that there are surely many listeners who still don't understand what any of this has to do with UFOs. Again, I reiterate, try to mute all those preconceptions built up in your mind over your lifetime, and consider the esoteric undercurrent. I hope you enjoyed this wild ride. And if you did, I promise the next installment will be the wildest one yet. Until next time, I will leave you with this one final quote. Why don't they contact us? The skeptics ask. It might be better for us to ask, why didn't they leave us alone? From John Keel.
Okay, Watcher. You have a better understanding
I think
of
that the skeptics would just say, well, those people are the ones with the
The
mental...
Watcher's get thrown up all
No,
these pictures of brains with the eye of
Okay. So the pictures, hopefully History Shift can get those into a video because those are going to be important. The spinning head with how does this all come together has a lot to do with the Eye of Horus and the way that it's described. But we always focus on the pineal gland and the hypothalamus, right? The
I don't.
basal
But go ahead.
Well, okay, well, neurobiologists do. But the basal ganglia, the thing that Dr. Nolan is specifically talking about is the white of the eye in the overlay of the Eye of Horus on the human brain. That's where it all happens. There are very few parts of the brain that are what are called bihemispheric, where you have crossover between the two hemispheres in the brain. Everything he's talking about is in one of those regions. Now, what he's saying about pilots and people with quick reflexes, people that are doing things like Russ has talked before about people when they go base jumping.
Are you referencing an article you read? Is that what's happening?
Yes, I read. Marty sent me the article at the end of segment 4, and I read through the whole article.
Okay, because we didn't read the article on the show, so you're saying,
right?
Yeah,
I would highly suggest everybody read it and then listen to this so I can make sense out of it if you don't have a background in like neurology.
Yeah, I didn't want to overwhelm any more than we already did.
But the thing is that what he's saying specifically is that people who have a predisposition towards high density of neuronal connections, basically neurons that jump hemispheres, have a tendency towards like the base jumper going off the edge of the cliff, right? And he's just kind of floating there and then he just moves. Doesn't know why, but he just avoided killing himself. Pilots who can move faster than they're able to perceive. Goalkeepers with penalty kicks, things that people have a tendency to do when they have no freaking way of knowing what's about to happen, yet they do it anyway. Those are the people we're talking about. Then they're exposed to whatever it is that emanates from these materials. In the article, Dr. Nolan talks about how the isotopic ratios of magnesium in these things are way off in ways that make no sense. I got nothing for you on that. What I can say is that it seems almost as if the materials relative to us are in flux in some weird way. That flux, or whatever the exposure is, causes these areas to create more neurons that jump across both hemispheres. Now, I can't say for sure what any of it means, but I can tell you what it implies in a strong way. People who have a predisposition towards being able to react to things before they happen have that increased. And if you look at the experience of people who are given messages, prophetic vision, being exposed to the entity increases their ability to have prophetic vision. These side effects that are caused are all the same side effects that untreated paranoid schizophrenics have, and a lot of them are killed by it. But it gives them the ability, at least on a anatomical level in the brain, to potentially foretell the future.
And notice that these people that were studied, which there were over 100, were the people that encountered the entities.
Yeah, and he says
they have the ability. He's implying, actually, in his personal comments, he says they have the ability to perceive a reality that normal people can't.
Yeah, but he starts out by saying some of their brains were horribly damaged.
That was what they initially thought.
Yeah.
But as they went in, it wasn't damage. They were changed.
I would actually venture a little past that to the ones who he has the ability to see MRIs prior to the exposure. He can draw a direct correlation. It seems like, and I can't say this for sure, but that some of them probably were horribly damaged, but that's because those weren't the brains it was looking for.
Yeah, it also notices that he says that 25% of them died from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably damage, right? You would call that damage. He says out of the 100 or so experiencers, they had a bunch of other symptoms, and a quarter of them died from their injuries.
I think that he's not giving us all the information because he says there were a smorgasbord of other effects. Symptoms. We don't know what those. I do know what some of them are, but that's something we're going to be talking about in the next episode. But
so another thing to make very clear, the cerebellum is the actual thing that carries out the action of physical movement, balance, and all of that. The area of the brain that we are talking about is if someone's holding a gun to you and you go, I need to do this to get the gun out of his hand before he shoots me, that's the part of the brain where this occurs. The reasoning connected to motion, the predictive, the contemplative, oh shit, what do I do now, is where this happens in the brain. So whenever somebody you would describe as quick on their feet or able to...
Yeah, this says it was taking place in neurons in the area of the brain responsible for planning, learning, and execution.
Right. So like somebody who can trip over something and it looks like they're going to fall, but they take like 8 weird steps that make no sense and they don't fall down. Those are the people we're talking about.
That's not planning or learning or execution.
It is, though.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that it's because they don't know they're doing it. In most of these people, they're not conscious of the fact that they have...
Well, I'm just saying that I don't think you would qualify that as planning, right?
He refers to it as intuition.
Yeah.
Well, it says here that so they realized what they were seeing was not damage to the brain because they've realized like if that was actually damage, it would have killed them in the motor control center. But it was an overconnection of neurons in the area of the brain responsible for planning and learning and execution, which those aren't intuitive responses to like immediate stimuli.
I didn't write this
instead of tripping. Think of it in terms of a pilot going Mach 1 who all of a sudden has a blip come up on his scope and he banks left hard and then does a bunch of random stuff that if he would have done it any differently, he would have stalled or gone into some sort of horrible spin that would have killed him.
Okay.
You've heard me try to talk backwards why I did something to explain to you how it all makes sense and how it horribly fails every time.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing.
And I spent all that time telling you you're not planning that stuff out.
Right.
You think you are after the fact.
Exactly.
In the audio interview with Nolan, the interviewer asks him if he thinks that these individuals' brains were changed by their encounter.
Mm-hmm. And he says no. They start out this way. He said
they already seem to have had this.
But it gets
so it's
magnified.
Facilitating. I would say it's facilitating their encounters.
Yeah.
So, and he's implying that some people that are diagnosed with schizophrenia may not actually be schizophrenic.
Yeah.
They may have this ability to perceive things that we normal people can't.
It says here that, the MRIs of some individuals taken before their encounters revealed that the condition was already present. I would be interested to know, was it magnified after the encounter? Like, in other words, you're still seeing the condition previous to the encounter, but it's not nearly as like powerful as it is afterwards. In other words, that the encounter itself.
That's what the article implies.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was implying too.
It doesn't say it explicitly, but it's there implicitly. That
the other,
but that still doesn't.
That normal density.
That still doesn't.
And then after the event, it was like crazy high density wise to the point where it caused in some ways neurological dysfunction.
Yeah.
But that still doesn't say whether or not the vision or the encounter was caused by the increase or the other way around.
Yeah. Right. We still don't know the
Good point.
causal agent here. Interesting stuff,
The
though.
other thing is the fact that this seems to run in the family parallels with, for example, alien encounters are very often claimed to run in families.
Right. But
But I mean, it doesn't say a whole lot. I mean, it's not, it's, I mean, he describes this same thing in the brain being similar with people who have schizophrenia. So it's not, I'm not sure if this is.
It's not similar. The symptoms that would be experienced and that are reported are similar. So somebody who had this propensity or the ability to see out past into another realm would have all of the same symptoms as an undiagnosed paranoid schizophrenic. Now, that's based only on what's reported, and there are a lot of things that aren't. So there could be other signs, but it would be easy, especially in a time when we had less understanding of neurology, to put them in the same category as paranoid schizophrenic.
you're saying the outward symptoms may appear similar, but once you do a brain scan, they're not. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay. But again, to me, this, like the way that this is presented here, and this is like the skeptics don't have this, which is why they don't have these experiences. I say, yeah, like they would say the same thing. Like people who have these experiences obviously have something wrong with their brains, is what a skeptic would say.
That's what I was going with it.
Yeah.
Wrong like a fox.
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah. How would a defect in somebody's brain manifest itself on a radar screen?
Oh, that's not the same
Well,
thing.
no, but yeah, it is, because some of these are pilots, and I know it's not stated in here, but one of the individuals tested that exhibited this abnormality was involved in the Nimitz encounter. So
did
this
the people that didn't have the brain condition in that encounter not see it?
we don't know.
I mean, what?
We don't know.
Or
It may
I
be.
would wonder, did they,
They're not telling. I'm shocked that this information came out at all. First of all, this is the first official acknowledgement that I know of them validating deaths related to UFO encounters.
Yeah. Well, they're validating it as deaths related to brain problems.
But all of these people were people that had encounters.
Right. Which
I'm just not.
The simplest explanation is the encounters are explained by the brain problems that eventually killed them. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just telling you that that's I can see that skeptic path easily.
That's not what Nolan
although
thinks.
I see where you're going with that. The information Dr. Nolan presents of the people he's able to see prior to exposure, they were in no way anywhere near any type of signs that they would have neurological damage. They had an abnormal density of these neurons, but not in a degree that's like unheard of. After the exposure, they are changed.
Yeah.
To a degree where they are almost like questionably human based on this crossover.
Right. But it's like Kyle was saying, one way to think about that is like something changed in their brain and then they have this sighting and encounter and it changes them forever. And it's also neurologically damaging and some of them die from it. In other words, that you just don't know which one is the causal agent here.
Yeah, you can't say which one came first.
Yeah.
What I would say is that what it would take for spontaneous neural generation to cross hemispheres, as far as our understanding would go right now, would almost require something as extreme as a direct injection of pluripotent stem cells into the region.
Yeah. Well, that just shows that we don't know a lot about the brain.
Well, I mean, I'll agree with you there. But there's no other in currently the canon of neurology, there is no incidence of wide scale random proliferation of neurons anywhere in any region of the brain, period. not just this one, but that's just a thing that has never been seen.
That was my
Doesn't
question.
mean it couldn't happen or that, this thing is a cause of that, but I can say for sure that it has never been recorded any other time.
Yeah, how was this missed in the past is my question.
I don't know.
No one ever checked for it, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all an interesting question.
It's groundbreaking.
Yeah.
I will say that it definitely leads us to better questions about what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
For sure. Because this is a nuts and bolts manifestation of whatever is going on. There's a thing happening.
Well, the question then becomes like, is everyone who's ever experienced something have this same kind of scan? We don't know that.
It would be great if we could, from here forward, scan them all.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's what they're studying, that they are working towards that. They're trying, he even talks about in the article that they're developing new equipment to test for this.
Yeah.
Well, I can guarantee you that the radar didn't have that problem.
Yeah. That's right.
So those scenarios you can just, like you use that as a point, but to me, well, the radar doesn't have this weird brain problem.
So the brain problem can't be
the reason they're seeing it.
No. The brain, right. The radar is tracking the object or whatever. So there is something there.
It's not required to have this brain condition to see it.
No, but maybe the proximity to it is changing something in their brain.
Except that they had this brain condition before they had the experiences. So we still don't know what's going on here.
The brain condition could be the thing that led them to be in the place they needed to be. Possibly. There's no way to say.
Yeah. Or whatever the entities are looking for people with this condition to appear to, and that makes them also show up on radar. I don't know. I'm just saying it's not cut and dried. As with all this stuff, it's complex.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Brains are squishy. They're never dry.
That's right.
It's a whole new layer to this.
Yep. All right.
But it's very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks, Marty.
Yeah, fascinating stuff, as always.
The synchronicity that you joined us for this.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We're just going to go for that's a long sode.
Super long
sode for the end of the year. We were contemplating possibly releasing some of this on the Patreon, but it's all going to be released in the main feed, and maybe we'll do a Patreon episode next week for the Patreon subscribers, for the supporters of the show. And possibly in the main feed, we may just take the week off. So we'll do a nice Patreon episode next week, and then we'll come back after the New Year's. So thank you guys so much. And do we have some producers?
We do.
Yeah.
We have one executive producer saying, toward continuing your acquisition of technical marvels. Happy solstice. And that's from Anne. Anne Who Knits.
Anne Who Knits.
And Who Knits. $200. Thank you so much, Anne, for the support.
Wow.
And also an associate executive producer, and I'm not sure how to pronounce this exactly, but I think it's Laura Kotu. And she says, hope it works this time. I guess she must have tried to do this before.
I talked to her in email about it not working before.
She says, wish I could do more. Love all you guys do. Happy holidays. That's a $50 donation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And also a donation note from Jocelyn. She says, thank you for the intelligent and mind-expanding contents, discussions, interviews that you create. Jocelyn from West Virginia. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, I think we have more fun making them than you guys do listening to them. So
it is a lot of fun.
We're on the good end of the deal here.
Yeah.
So
should we title this episode "The Musings of Lunatics"? Because I mean, that last reveal,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I was like, oh, okay,
yeah.
they all got brain problems.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
I'm just
As
kidding.
usual,
Hey, for all of you
got
people,
everything I said totally wrong.
no, but seriously, for all of you people out there that may have had encounters, that's a joke.
Yeah, of course. You've had encounters.
Exactly.
Right.
But I probably actually have brain damage.
Yeah, you
so.
do. And I wonder if it, does it include just seeing ghosts? Like, does that, because like this study has been done on people who saw like things flying around in the sky, right? So,
I think it's all connected. I
right,
they're
you
all
think
part
it
of the
is,
same
but the thing is like, we're presented with the. I don't want to go too long here. We've already discussed
It
this.
doesn't matter. Just keep going.
We're presented with the idea that, that people who had experiences with UFOs, because they're studying pilots. And pilots aren't reporting, wow, I saw a ghost in the sky.
Yeah.
All right, but add to
they
this.
this is incomplete data once
Yeah,
again
that's what I'm
because
saying.
you have to go and scan everyone's brain
Yeah.
Add
and
to
then
this,
decide
though,
which ones had visions and which ones didn't.
Yeah, of course.
Add to this that some of these people that had these encounters also seem to have all of a sudden gained odd abilities.
Yeah.
So
You're also assuming that we could interpret what the scans mean 100% of the time, because we can't.
Who is assuming that?
No, that if we scanned everyone's brains, we'd know.
Right.
Like,
No, but you might see this pattern that they're talking about. That is.
I think that, based on what I know now.
No, I'm not assuming anything. I'm saying that you can't make assumptions until you scan everyone's brain.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Ah,
You're the one making a bunch of assumptions about the brain scans.
but you know what they say, man. When you assume, it makes an ass out of you, and me, I'm awesome.
Brothersoftheserpent.com for everything related to the podcast. Brothersoftheserpent@gmail.com to email us. Thanks to all of you who have sent in emails. And we do have the UFO emails that have been sent in, and we will be going over those with Marty at some point in the future. So
If he will show up with less notes.
right. He's not allowed to show up with any notes next time. So we're going to have a real conversation, a normal conversation, and maybe we can address some of those emails. All right?
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
thank you.
Yep.
And happy birthday, shape-shifting Jesus.
That's right.
Oh, man, that just made something else make sense to me. All right. ITM, everybody.
That's right. We love you guys.
Always have.
Always will.
Good night, Adamu.
Get back to work
You changed it up on me.
Always changing it
every
up.
time.